old school bodybuilding clothing company. If you're the hardest training person at your gym, you are old school. If you hate math but you can count by 45s, you are old school. OSBBC.com for the hardest training athletes.
After working hard at the gym, you need a mattress that works as hard as you do. Spinalign has engineered the perfect mattress for you and your active lifestyle. Don't compromise your recovery with inferior sleep. Order your Spinalign mattress today.
Hey guys, we're super excited to be here at the LA Fit Expo. It's our third year in a row. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be launching a tasty pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs. And we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. This is your forum for all questions, bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding, diet, training, supplementation, whatever's on your mind, it is all on the table. We might want to keep the politics election-free zone for obvious reasons. As we now bring in Dave Palumbo, we had some news from earlier today. The British Grand Prix taking place in London. James Hollingshead winning his second consecutive pro show. Of course, he won the Europa Pro a couple of weeks back. Regan Grimes, Mark Hector in second and third, and then 6'5", Jamie Kristen Johal, the Giant, finishing in fourth. So with that win, James Hollingshead secures his Olympia qualification for 2021. As we now bring in Dave. Dave, yesterday we posted something on our RxMuscle Instagram. We like to get the community engaged. We like to ask some questions that'll spark some debate. Well, we asked them if you could have one bodybuilder, past or present, that you would vote for as president, who would it be? So I'll ask you the question. If you had to vote for one bodybuilder as president of the United States, who would it be?
Well, I mean, the only person who's probably qualified at this point who actually has the knowledge base would probably be Arnold Schwarzenegger. So, because he's already been governor, I think he knows the political arena. You know, I would probably feel comfortable with him, you know, taking over the job. And I think he wouldn't be afraid to make the hard decisions. So that's a
but he wouldn't be eligible though, right?
I know, that's the only problem. but this is all hypothetical anyway. But I guess you know who would probably be a good president? I guess Lee Haney would probably be a good president.
I knew you were going to say, and I knew you were either going to say Lee Haney or Jay Cutler.
Yeah, I don't know if Jay would even want to be involved with that, but I think Haney would be good because Haney's he's a man of the people, and he's a man of God, and he's a man of he's more concerned about his fellow American and his fellow, you know, human beings than himself, and I think that unselfishness would lead him to be a good political figure. I think Jay's still Jay's more of a businessman at this point. I think maybe he's too young to even think about anything like that. And I don't know if he'd be even interested in it, but I think that Haney would be a great leader, and he's very mentally stable, which is unusual for bodybuilders. Most of us are a little crazy. Haney's very predictably stable, and I think that would also make him a really good leader.
So we had some fun with it yesterday on Instagram. If you have your idea for who you would vote for president of the United States from the bodybuilding community, past or present, comment below. As we now go to the questions, the first two questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. First question, Dave, I've noticed a ton of bodybuilders have shoulder problems, including yourself. As someone who is just at the beginning of their bodybuilding career and is using the heavy-duty training style you recommend, are destroyed shoulders inevitable, or is there a way to build huge delts without ruining your shoulders?
You know, I have my own personal philosophy on this. I believe that there are two types of people who work out. The people who have very tight, you know, joints that don't move, that have very little movement, those people tend to be not as flexible. But when you have tight joints, you don't tend to damage the joint as much because everything is when you're lifting heavy, you're not getting a lot of movement in the joint, which is because movement is what creates the rubbing and the wearing away effect. The problem is that with people who have very little movement in their joint, they tend to, the first thing that gives out is the muscle, and they get muscle tears, those people. So they will never have any joint issues, but they may have muscle tears, rotator cuff, you know, pecs, biceps, stuff like that. Then there's the people like myself who have a lot of flexibility in their joints. I can do a split. I mean, I have a tremendous, ridiculous flexibility. I really haven't torn any muscles in my career, aside from when I fell on the steps in India, I tore my quad. Anyone would have torn their quad with doing what I did. But during my career, all the lifting and craziness I did, I never really had a muscle tear or a severe muscle tear. It's because my joints always weren't flexible enough to allow the muscle to give. Now the problem is that the joint was taking the beating, is what it was. And because of that, I think I wore away my shoulder joints, you know, because think about it, the shoulder joint moves in so many different planes of motion. And if you start doing behind the neck presses, and I can bring my arms into a really, you know, extended, you know, way back type of position because of my flexibility, and now I'm putting ridiculous amount of weight on it, that joint is just not meant to handle that. So would I have done anything different had I, you know, gone back in time in the time machine? Probably not, because I built the muscle I wanted to. I just, you know, I sacrificed the joint. So you have to kind of identify what your body type is and then be careful, you know, maybe find better exercises. Maybe if I would have done more front presses, it wouldn't have been as bad, but who knows, you know. I think that, you know, our bodies are not meant to be subjected to what we do to it in bodybuilding, let's face it. I mean, and you have to make a decision. Do you want to put your body on the line? You know, my wife is a gymnast, you know, for her whole, you know, childhood career, and she damaged stuff too. I mean, it's not normal for 6 hours a day to be swinging on a bar, you know, and doing flips and stuff like that and landing on your head. You know, so she's got neck problems and shoulder problems too. So it's do you want to be great at something? If you are, as my dad would always say, if you want to be an athlete, you better learn to live with some pain, because you're gonna have some repercussions to it. If you want to play it safe and lead a very comfortable, safe, conservative lifestyle, you'll probably have very little injuries. The problem is that you might be bored your whole life. So anything worth doing is worth laying it on the line. And once again, you got to take the risks that come along with it. Ronnie Coleman, that's why people don't understand when they ask him, do you regret, you know, any decisions you made in terms of your lifting? And he said, the only regret I have is that I didn't lift heavier, you know, because he wanted to be the best, and he was the best.
Second question, of course, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app, we'd like to get some serious questions, some funny questions. Well, this one really on the serious end of the Richter scale. As a guru, I would feel that you would have the best answer to this. What is the real cause of Big Lenny's notorious rock hard bloated midsection?
You know, it's a combination of, you know, toxicity, a lot of, I think it's mostly intra-abdominal fat is what it is. And it could be from a poor diet. It could be from, you know, I don't know if he took insulin. I don't know if, you know, what his family history is or predisposition is for that. Obviously, it's definitely related to poor health and probably, you know, organ toxicity, you know, and what happens is when these organs build up toxins, they stiffen up. And so that's why his abdomen is really hard. You know, what you got to start doing is I have a video out on our RxMuscle YouTube channel called the intestinal breathing exercises. You got to start doing that so to soften up the organs. He needs to be doing a fiber supplement to keep the waste moving through his colon at a more efficient rate. You know, he needs to reduce that intra-abdominal fat. That probably would involve some kind of fasting regimens and lower food intake. Doing like my detox, you know, my 3-week detox that on him might be better off being done for 8 weeks. You know, he could get that down. Your body will change. You know, I was explaining to someone on the phone the other day about how, you know, the hand that you have today in 7 years will be a new hand. And when I say that, I mean every cell will be replaced, including the bone. because the body's constantly remodeling itself. So what you're eating today on for the next 7 years will dictate, what you look like and what your health status is moving forward. So you can change your body, to a certain degree, as long as there's not permanent damage being done to something, scarring and stuff like that, because scar tissue doesn't really replace itself. So if you have high kidney function, for instance, and it's only been that way for a couple months, you can reverse it. If it's been like that for 5-10 years, you probably have scar tissue laid down, and that's going to be a little more difficult for your kidneys to regenerate. But what Lenny has done to himself is reversible. Now, I don't know if he has any permanent health issues from it, but it's the cosmetic aspect of it is reversible. He has to just want to reverse it. Right now, he doesn't want to, obviously, because I already offered to give him a regimen to help that.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not already following us, it's official_RxMuscle. And if this is the first time you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button below, hit the notification bell. Again, with the Olympia coverage starting in about a week and a half, you're not going to want to miss any of our uploads. Hit the notification bell. We're going to have all sorts of episodes, preview episodes, episodes of Iron Debate, athlete interviews, wall-to-wall coverage of the Olympia, the Iron Road to the Olympia, and then, of course, Olympia weekend, all the coverage from Las Vegas. I told Tyler to pull this up. We just posted it on Instagram, Dave. I don't know if you already saw this, but you did interview Nathan Biasha a couple of weeks ago about how he was fighting with the authorities to keep his gym open and how London, the United Kingdom, is going into another lockdown. And obviously gyms are one of the first things that usually will get shut down. We posted this. This was sent to us from our good friend Luis Rogers in the United Kingdom. It was posted by Lad Bible. There's a tank literally parked in front of the Parliament buildings, right, and their main cause is to keep the gyms open.
Is that just a joke, or you think it's real? You think it's really to keep the gyms
No, it's
open?
real. This is real. They're literally stationed outside of the Parliament building.
Sid, if you and I wanted to do some kind of a protest somewhere, okay, where would we rent a tank from? I mean, just think about that. I mean, it's not like you can go to a U-Haul and say, I like that tank over there, and we're going to need it for a few hours, and then where do you rent the tank?
Dave, I will say this, right, and not to get political. Obviously, right now is the thick of the election, and who knows how many more days this all is going to last. But the last month, the last few weeks, or what have you, I have been exposed to some of the darkest chapters of the internet, just via Twitter, via Instagram, that I never knew existed. So when you say, where does somebody go about renting a tank? A tank is probably the least innocuous thing that you could probably get your hands on right now with all that's going on in the world today.
I'd like to find a tank. I think I want to get a species tank, and I want to just I'll have Tyler driving around instead of his little car he drives around. And
I like my Nissan Juke.
we're going to get a species tank. I'm going to drive that around town from now on, because I don't care about the gas mileage. I just want to have something that's going to make a statement. Can you imagine if I pulled up into Publix parking lot, to buy groceries with a tank? Be good advertising.
Or we could get an RxMuscle tank, and if Lee is going to be out in Vegas covering the Olympia, we'll have him drive the tank up and down the Vegas Strip. How about that?
All right, there we go.
Let's go to the questions. First one from Green Fiend. Exercises to get the lower back firing. I'm constantly tight and stiff, especially after legs and deadlifts.
I have been experiencing hip problems on my right hip. I thought I needed a hip replacement because I'm a hypochondriac a little bit too. But I've been walking around and I'm all out of alignment, and things are popping and cracking, and I'm in a lot of discomfort. And I'm I almost don't want to even walk. And my good friend Mimi Jabley, who's a chiropractor, also a massage therapist, she gave me this stretch to do. It's for your piriformis muscle, which is kind of under your glute muscle. It kind of connects your pelvis to your leg bones, to your femurs. And it was so tight. This stretch, tears were coming out of my eyes when I first did it. It released the tension in my pelvic area, which also affected my lower back, so much so that it was like someone gave me a shot of morphine. That's the release I got just from doing this stretch. I'm going to show it to you in a second. I don't know if Tyler can see me on camera when I do it, but I'm going to do it. And I'm telling you, especially if you sit at a computer desk all day long, which is what I do. And I think what happens is all those those piriformis muscles get all bound down, and they what they do is they shorten. Instead of being able to elongate, they shorten, so everything's tightened down, which torques your back, which torques your hips. And when you walk, you feel like there's something wrong, and it misaligns everything, and things start popping out of place. And no matter how much I stretched, because I do the runner stretches from back in my running days. I get on the floor, do my hurdler stretch, I do the split stretches, and I'm pretty flexible. I can get everything out, loosened up, but it wasn't solving that problem. So what I found was, what you got to do is you got to get your leg up on a table. Okay, I don't want to fall down here on camera. You get your leg up like this at a right angle. You try to get this back leg back as far as possible, and you just lean forward. And you're gonna feel a stretch in your hip, piriformis muscle, that is gonna, I'm feeling it right now. It's mind-boggling, okay, the way it feels. And you gotta just stay there and breathe through it, that's all. And it's not comfortable. I was like hallucinating the first time I did it because I was in so much pain. But when you bring your leg back down, right now I feel it. It's like a rush you get of like a release. It's like almost like an endorphin release in your body. And I'm telling you, you can do that a few times a day initially until it really breaks up, and start implementing that in your normal stretching routine. If you have one, you should have one. I'm telling you, it's gonna change your life. Change my life. I do it every day now, a couple times a day when I'm feeling, sometimes I'm sitting out, I can't get comfortable in the chair. It's because that piriformis is so tight. And it's hard to get to through massage because it's deep. It's deep in there. You have to almost get your finger through the glute muscle. So this stretch will hit it, and I'm telling you, it'll relieve a lot of your back pain.
Let's go to, and I think a lot of people are going to appreciate that demonstration, because I think that's a lot of people now, especially working from home, they're sitting down for upwards of 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are experiencing, including myself, that kind of tightness down there in the pelvic area. So I think a lot of people are going to appreciate that stretch. Let's go to Surge Body Dev. Dave, this might sound like a dumb question, but are there any merits to taking your multivitamins and minerals post-workout in order for them to be better utilized in the growth and repair process, or does it not matter when exactly to take your pills? And I guess he's referring specifically to Mineralize.
Yeah, I take all my vitamins in the morning with breakfast, and then I take them again usually after I train. If I train super late at night, then I'll just do it at dinner time. But you want to break them up into 2 doses. So like, let's say you're taking V-Mineralize for your vitamins, minerals, trace metals, and you're taking Omega-Lyze for your essential fatty acids. Let's say that's all you're taking a day. You take your 5 V-Mineralize with your 3 Omega-Lyze in the morning with breakfast. You take 5 V-Mineralize with 3 Omega-Lyze with your, maybe like 10 hours later, or post-workout with that meal. I mean, and that'll do it, because you want to give your body, you got to remember, vitamins, minerals, and trace metals are all cofactors. That means they're catalysts. They help the chemical reactions in our body. And basically our bodies are just one big chemical reaction. So if you want to metabolize carbohydrates in the Krebs cycle, you need certain minerals and vitamins and trace metals as cofactors. If you want to metabolize protein, and protein synthesis reactions, you're going to need other certain things. If you want insulin to work correctly, you need chromium. So all these different, minerals and vitamins are necessary for the body to run its chemical reactions. And if you're in short supply of these things because you're not taking enough in your diet, you're not supplementing right, or maybe you're supplementing with a really cheap multivitamin that doesn't have enough of them, or it's not absorbable because it's the wrong form, you're gypping your body. Now your body can't build muscle at optimal rates. It can't burn and metabolize fat at optimal rates. Okay, it can't restore glycogen at optimal rates because you're not giving it what it needs. Just imagine you're spending all this time and money on food, training, performance-enhancing drugs, and then you're not taking your vitamins, minerals, and trace metals, or your essential fatty acids, which are necessary for the healing of all the muscle cell membranes. So it's idiotic not to take those two. That's why when people ask me what supplements should I take, I say the ones that are absolute necessities are V-Mineralize, Omega-Lyze, and FIBERLYZE. Obviously, we talked about fiber a lot, why that's necessary. And everything else is essentially a luxury item. If you have extra money and you want to buy the other stuff, then it's great. If you need something for joint repair, you take Arthrolyze or something comparable. If you want extra protein because you don't want to cook food all the time, you want to have some protein shakes, you buy a whey isolate. So all that stuff, unfortunately, is what people buy first. People go and buy protein shakes, they buy amino acids, they buy pre-workouts, and then they don't even worry about the vitamin, minerals, trace metals, and essential fats. And that's stupid because that's really what your body requires. You got to make sure your body has, it's like trying to go to a job and build a house without hammers and drills and all the tools you need. You're not going to be able to do it. You're going to do a crappy job if you have to kind of, half-ass it because you don't have the tools with you. So make sure you take your essentials.
Speaking of FIBERLYZE, and for those playing the drinking game at home, class is up. Question is about how many times a day should you have FIBERLYZE and when, before or after meals?
I take it usually like sometime during the midday, like around noon or something like that, and then I take it, before bed on an empty stomach. It can be taken with meals, it can be taken without meals. It fills you up a little bit, so you might feel too full if you take it right after a meal. Although I've done it before, it doesn't matter when you take it. So what I try to do is I try to take it in between meals, but especially if you're dieting, that's a good idea to do it because it'll fill you up a little bit. But if you're not and you want to just pound it down, that's fine. But try to get in a regimen where you're doing it at the same time, because what you'll notice is if you change the times you do it, you'll mess up your pooping schedule, so to speak. But it doesn't matter because it's like I said, as long as you're getting the 2 servings in a day, I think that's optimal. And once again, try to build a routine. Everything I do is routines, and once you get into a routine, you don't have to think about it anymore. I mean, you brush your teeth before you go to bed. You brush your teeth in the morning. I take my contact lenses out at night. I put them in the morning. I have all my little routines that I just do. I wake up in the morning. I feed the turtles and the tortoises in my garage, and I clean the cat's litter box and replace the wee pads for my little puppy dogs. I just have a routine I go through, and you got to just add that into your routine, your fiber routine, and do it when it's most convenient for you, so that you won't forget. Don't try to schedule it during the busiest time of your day because you're probably not going to do it then.
Let's go to Tommy Mack. My test level is in the 300s. I'm a prime candidate for TRT, but I want to do a drug-tested bodybuilding show in March. Any suggestions? My recovery is bad. My joints ache after just a few days of training.
Look, if you're on TRT, you're technically not natural. It's like you could be a Major League Baseball player and you have a 0 testosterone. If they put you on HRT testosterone, you're violating their substance rules that they have in place, even though you need it. Okay, so there's a no supplement excuse law. So I mean, if you're going to need to take hormone replacement to feel good about yourself, then don't do a natural show because you're not natural anymore. You're being enhanced. You're being supplemented with. Even if you're not doing huge dosages, it doesn't matter. Once you take that step and you do that shot, you're not natural anymore, and that's the bottom line. I wanted to mention something else that I want to just give people a teaser. We have a new flavor of ISOLIZE coming out. It has not hit yet, so don't torture me. It's going to be here in another probably week or two. It's pumpkin spice ISOLIZE, and it's going to be a nice holiday flavor. It might be my favorite flavor of ISOLIZE of all time. So guys, when it comes in, it's coming in limited amounts, so you guys are going to have to really act quickly. We will give you a heads up when it arrives, though.
Let's go to, say this one to the end. Nathan, people had some fun with this name last week. Nathan Schittler. Thoughts on intra carbs, eaas for recovery. John Meadows' ideas include intra carbs and very high body part frequency. Have you done anything similar in your career, or have you just stuck with the typical one body part a week bodybuilding style splits?
I never was able to recover from training the same body part multiple times a week. It just didn't work. I got overtrained immediately, very fast. It's like my metabolism just took off of me. I didn't have any desire to train the body part. In other words, if I had to train chest 3 times a week, I would dread going into the gym. When you dread going in to train a body part, you're not going to give it a good workout. There's no way you could recover from that. Now, there are some freak of natures that can probably do it. And I know guys that do pull-ups and train back every day, a little back every day, and they got a great back. But maybe they already had a great back, and that's they think that's what gave them the great back, and it really didn't. I recommend one body part per week. In other words, if you're going to train legs, you train them once a week, and give them a good enough workout that you don't want to train them anymore. Now, that's not to say that other people can't respond to these different workout philosophies. I'm just telling you in general. My rule of thumb, if you're training hard and you're really, obliterating a muscle part in the gym, meaning, and I'm not talking about doing 100 sets, I'm talking about training it with full range of motion, okay, training with heavy weights and high intensity, you shouldn't want to train it any more than once a week, and you shouldn't need to.
I want to get this question in because last week we talked about, I guess, diet drinks during prep. But CRU Jones wants to know your thoughts on zero sugar, low calorie energy drinks that are on the market. In your opinion, are they healthy or unhealthy? I always hear conflicting opinions on these drinks.
They're unhealthy if you're drinking 6 of them a day, okay? If you're drinking 1 a day, okay, in the morning, because you want a little pickup in the gym or you want to be able to get through work, I think they're fine. I think that everything in moderation is okay. I think once people start abusing them, okay, and overtaxing their adrenal glands, overtaxing, their cortisol systems in their body because they're stressing their body out too much, raising heart rate too much, raising blood pressure, then they become dangerous. So you have to understand that everything has to be done in moderation. Not to mention that if you do 3 energy drinks a day, they're not going to work anymore. They're not going to do anything for you, okay? I started drinking a little coffee when recently because I have kids, and I was an anti-stimulant person, but that's when I was able to sleep 8 hours a night. Now I'm sleeping 4 hours a night. I can't function otherwise. But I found that if I take a cup of coffee only on the days that like when Tyler comes in, we record video, and I try to a couple days a week do no caffeine or very little caffeine, I'm always responding to it. If I have a cup of coffee, I'm wired from it. It's enough. I don't need any more than a cup of coffee. If I use an energy drink, I don't drink the whole can. I drink like maybe a quarter of the can. I don't need it because I'm responding to it because I'm not excessively using stimulants. That's the key. The key is to keep your receptors fresh so that you can use a little bit and go a long way with that.
We have time for one more. We have Lee on deck, so we can't go too long with this episode, and I'm going to wrap it up from Tyler. It's from Big Ant. Dave, back in the day when you were in your prime, you lifted very heavy, very free weights, basic compound movements. Did you have any favorite brand of equipment, machine manufacturers? And knowing what you know now, would you change any part of your weight training protocol from back in the day?
I'm trying to think back. The equipment companies when I was in the training in the 90s that were huge, the newest ones was Hammer Strength. And that really revolutionized, training with machines because they actually were machines that you loaded with plates and they actually moved in the natural range of motion. I'm just thinking Hammer Strength Press. I loved it. But they weren't a replacement for free weights because any machine will stabilize the weight for you, meaning that you don't have to balance the weight, yourself. And that takes away something to the development of that muscle that you're training. But if you're doing free weight presses with a bar, and then you're doing free weight dumbbell presses, and then you go to a machine, you're not really losing because you already did the free weight. So I think machines are a good complement to any kind of free weight regimen, but they're not a good replacement for it. Except when you get older, like me. I don't need to use free weights anymore, even though I still do use some, because I already have the muscle I want, and if I wanted to get more, I could probably re-stimulate it with machines because I already put the muscle on. But for new muscle and to get complete, full, round, developing muscle, you got to do free weight movements. And you got to teach yourself because of the balancing and stabilization techniques, you're going to get a much more full and complete development to your body.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. A reminder right now on RxMuscle.com, all new episode of Heavy Muscle Radio. Last night's episode of After Hours with only Greg Valentino. So it was just Dave and Greg. Hilarious 45 minutes of After Hours. And then, of course, up next, well, Dave's going to be filming with them next, but it's going to be available tomorrow on RxMuscle.com, all new episode of Iron Rage. For Tyler Shore and Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.